What's up guys, I'm Josh and I lift things, and I'm here to talk about the best beginner routine. Now before we even get into it, I've said this before, I'll say it again, the least optimal routine that you can stick to for a long period of time will forever outperform the best possible routine that you can only follow for a couple of weeks. So if you're doing what you're doing and you like it, keep doing it. That being said, a lot of people will talk about just an awful routine and then say, well, it works for me. But in the case of a beginner, anything will work for you. You have to remember, training is the stimulus and then growth is the adaptation. And as a beginner, virtually any stimulus will cause adaptation. Now there's going to be some videos that I could consider as prerequisites for this video that you should check out. My training variables video, my linear progression video, and my beginner routine tier list. But just for a quick wrap up of all of those, for the training variables specifically, we're going to be talking about intensity, frequency, and volume. Intensity is how close to your 1 rep max you were training. Volume is the amount of reps or sets that you're doing throughout the day or week, and frequency is how often you're showing up to the gym. To explain what an LP is, it's essentially just adding the same amount of weight every single day you go into the gym. Very professional graph right here. Now there are hundreds if not thousands beginner LP programs, so what makes this one so special? And here it is, Phraks Greyskull LP. Now that's a lot of terms that you may not understand, but we just covered LP. Greyskull is a certain type of school or modality by someone named Johnny Payne. He wrote an ebook on this entire program. I highly recommend purchasing it. Go show him some love. Now Phraks Greyskull LP variant is a variant by Phrak or Fracture. Another great trainer who's made tons of different routines that I like to recommend, such as starting, stretching, and molding mobility. Now guys, this is the routine. As you can see, it is 3 days a week, and that holds true for virtually any beginner program. I think it's the perfect mix of one, not overtraining and also chasing that newbie game adaptation that we're going for, but also not making someone so burnt out from going to the gym. Beginners should really try to focus on making a habit out of the gym. So if you just start going 6 days a week, you're probably gonna get burnt out much quicker. So as you can see, all movements are 3x5 except for the deadlift, which is 1x5, but we will get there. So day 1, 3x5 overhead press, bench press alternating. 3x5 chin-ups, barbell rows alternating. 3x5 squats. Now day 2, overhead, bench alternating, chin-ups, rows alternating, deadlifts. And day 3, press, press alternating, pull, pull alternating, squats. So what does the alternating mean? It's very simple. It strictly means that on day 1, you would pick one of these two, either overhead or bench press. In this example, we're going to go with overhead press. And then you would pick one of these examples, chin-ups or barbell rows. For this scenario, we're going to go with chin-ups. So day 1 would be overhead press, chin-ups, squats. Day 2 would then pick the opposite of the one you picked in the first day. So if you picked overhead press in day 1 and chin-ups in day 1 like we just did, day 2 would then be bench press and barbell rows, and then deadlifts. And then day 3, you would go back to the first option you chose in day 1, so we would do overhead press, chin-ups, and squats. Now, you may be thinking, well, then you're only benching once a week. No, that's not the case, because week 2, you would flip-flop these. So your day 2 will become your day 1 and your day 3. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a pretty basic way of setting up routines. This is known as an ABA, because if you split ABA between a 3-day multi-week journey, it would go ABA, BAB, but it would still be in sequential order, A, B, A, B. So that is it. Only 3 movements, which a lot of people may be surprised. You see a lot of these push-pull leg splits that have, 50 different fucking movements and 5 bicep exercises and all this bloat volume. We don't need that. For starters, people have a misconceived notion of how hypertrophy works. People think you need to train in the 6 to 12 rep range. You need to 12, 15 plus. You can't train below 6 because then you're just building strength, not muscle. That's not how it works, and muscle and strength go hand in hand. If you don't want to believe the science in it, just look at any trainee who's ever used a linear progression type of split. They have always gotten bigger. You cannot get as strong as you're going to get as you will in this routine without getting bigger. Show me one person that benches 315 with a small chest. Now, let's talk about the rules that they have set down here. Last set is as many reps as possible, AMRAP. So this is very important to understand. It's not actually 3x5, it's 2x5, 1 times AMRAP. This AMRAP set is the moneymaker. This is deciding what's going to happen the next day or week that you train. If you get less than 5 reps on your AMRAP set, you will immediately deload that lift specifically by 10%. Meaning, If you were benching 100 and you got 2 sets of 5, and then on your AMRAP you got a set of 3, you would deload by 10%, meaning the next time you do bench, you are now going to bench 90 pounds. This is far better than any other linear progression model, like say starting strength, where you kind of just bash your head at a wall for 3 sessions in a row, or like strong lifts 5x5, where you drop from a 5x5 to a 3x5 to a 3x3. Not only is this great for immediately deloading so you don't just run your head into a wall and build up very high systemic fatigue, it also means that you can still progress even while in the deload. For our last example, when you were at 100 pounds and you failed your AMRAP and you had to deload down, your last 90-pound session was probably a week and a half ago, and your AMRAP was maybe anywhere from 5 to 9 reps. But since then, you've not only beaten 92.5 pounds, 95 pounds, 97.5 pounds, 100 pounds, your AMRAPs for all of those have also probably gone up. Meaning when you drop back down to the 90 pounds on your deload, your AMRAP will be much higher than it ever was before. So you're not necessarily progressing in weight or intensity, but you are setting a new rep max with 90 pounds, meaning you are still getting stronger, you're putting in more work, getting in more volume. It's just an awesome system. So continuing on with your AMRAP, if you get 5 to 9 reps, you do the standard increase on all of your lifts. Now, how much weight do you add? Well, you add 2.5 pounds to all of your upper body lifts and 5 pounds to all of your lower body lifts. Meaning, if you were benching 50 pounds and then on your AMRAP set, you got 7 reps, your next session would be 52.5 pounds. Now, you're probably asking, how the fuck do you get a 2.5 on there? Which is a fair question. Some gyms will have these, but most don't. They're called micro plates. They make them in tons of denominations, but the ones we're specifically referring to are 1.25 pound plates. So half of a 2.5 that you see at most gyms. If your gym doesn't have these, you can buy them on Amazon for like $10. They're insanely cheap. I have some in my workout bag all the time just in case I need them. They are an amazing investment, not just for this beginner routine, but for the rest of your lifting career. It's way easier to do actual progressive overload when you have 1.25 plates. And you can watch my video on progressive overload if you want to learn more about that. If you don't want to buy those, you can also buy some heavy metal washers from like a hardware store. You just have to make sure the inside diameter of the washer will actually fit, you know, over the bar. And I've also heard people be able to use baseball bat weights, but you'd probably have to shave it off a little bit to get it to fit in the actual barbell. So micro plates, you have to buy them. And our last note on the AMRAP set is if you get more than double the reps, you double the weight increase. So if you get 10 plus reps on your AMRAP, you will double the upper body and lower body weight increments, making them 5 pounds and 10 pounds respectively. So just a quick recap: AMRAP less than 5, deload 10%. AMRAP 5 to 9, add standard weight increase. AMRAP 10 plus, double weight increase. So now you're probably asking, how do you find the right rep range? Well, this famous infographic that's gotten shared around does not really explain that so much, but Johnny Payne does very much so in his book. One of the best ways to do it is just to go into the gym and figure out a weight that you can lift for 8 reps. 9 reps would have been too hard, 7 reps was too easy. Try to find that perfect 8 rep range. Doing 3 sets of 5 or 2 sets of 5 and 1 times AMRAP will be pretty easy with that weight. Do not be concerned with starting too light. The weight will increase very rapidly, and if it's that light, you will smash the AMRAP sets and you will be able to double the weight increase. So you will catch up to yourself very quickly. Starting too heavy is very much a concern. Beginners are notoriously terrible at figuring out what is too light or what is too heavy or what's too easy to train or too hard to train. You can watch my video on auto regulation to learn more about that. So it's going to be a little bit of guesswork in the beginning, but that's okay. It will correct itself very quickly. So it says here, any barbell row variant will do. Fracture is partial to Yates rows. Yates rows are awesome. It really depends on how beat up your lower back is feeling by all the squats and the deadlifts. You know, you can really do whatever you want. Yates rows are great. I really love croc rows, but that's kind of hard to program in here. Pick a row variant you enjoy. We don't have to be that exact. Now, this row discussion is actually part of the reason why Phraks Greyskull LP is different than the regular GSLP. Regular GSLP does not have the back work included here. It is an overhead press, a bench press, and squat and deadlift program, like most other beginner LPs are. Phraks made the pretty good realization that we need much more pulling work in general. I prefer to have a 2-to-1 pull to push ratio. And so now the compounds for your back are actually programmed, which I love. That's why I recommend it so much, people. Greyskull. It's just great. Now, one can make an argument that regular Greyskull LP is set up in a way that you could add these anyways and it's still GSLP, and that's true. But this is like a known named variant, so that's what we're going with. So here it says, feel free to use power cleans to warm up for deadlifts. This is very famous primarily because a lot of beginner LPs are used by like high school athletics. And so if you have some football players, you want them doing power cleans, but you don't know how to program it properly, so you just have them do it for warm-ups of deads, which makes sense. You know, it's fine enough. So chin-ups are palms facing you, approximately shoulder width grip. Begin unweighted, adding weight in 2.5 pound increments. Now, this is like the one sticking point in this routine that I often see that isn't that fleshed out. But again, in the full book, it is. So please go pick up the book. A lot of beginners can't do pull-ups or chin-ups, let alone weighted. So the typical type of progression that I recommend for people is start with lat pull down. If you have an assisted pull-up machine, you can do that. You can use a band to assist on your pull-ups. You can do jumping pull-ups where you jump up during the actual pull to make it way easier. And then you do a slow negative, or just negatives in general, where you get to the top position and then slowly lower yourself down. Start at the beginning of that list with the lat pull downs, and once you get comfortable, start working in the harder variations, ending with the negatives, and then eventually you'll be able to do full pull-ups. There's a lot of differences online where people argue don't do weighted until you can do 10, don't do it until you can do 5. I think for this program specifically, when you can do 5, that's when you can start adding in weight. And then it's also confusing, how do you add in weight? Well, it's kind of annoying sometimes, but you can hold a plate in between your feet, you can hold a dumbbell in between your feet, you can buy a belt specifically for this, you can use a weightlifting belt and put a chain through it, you could just put chains around your neck if your gym has them. There's a billion ways to add weights to these exercises, but they're all, you know, kind of obnoxious. But I promise you, it is worth it. Oh, I guess I should fucking read. If you cannot do 3x5 chin-ups, do negatives until you can. I think that's a little simplified, but yeah, for the most part, that's fucking it. And then if you fail to make 5 reps in the final set, deload by 10%. Yep, I already explained that. So let's talk about the overall volume of it. We have 3x5 for virtually every single lift except for the deadlifts. Now, is 3x5 enough to build muscle? Yes, it absolutely is. If you're doing each of these movements 1.5 times a week, 1.5 times a week, because for instance, this example, we do overhead press, bench press, overhead press, and then the next week we doing bench press, overhead press, bench press. So 1 week, 2 the next week, 1.5 week average. You know, we have 3 sets for that movement times 1.5 brings you to 7.5 total sets for the week. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, you need 10 to 20 for yada, yada, yada. That number is strictly just like a guideline. You can do less if intensity is high and build muscle. You can do more if intensity is low and build muscle. It does not matter. Stop trying to sprint before you run. Stop reading fucking scientific articles, even though I'm a nerd too. Just sometimes you have to train hard, and sometimes that means you don't need that many sets or that many assistance movements. I promise you, if you spend a couple months focusing on a routine like this, you will be stronger than you ever thought possible, and then you can move on to whatever bloated junk volume PPL routine you want to do, but be able to do all that assistance bullshit with actual weight. That's one of my biggest problems. People think they need, 3 bicep exercises, and then they're doing it with 5 pounds. And then someone will make the argument, oh, it's not the weight, it's the intensity. And while that is true, you could get a whole lot more bang for your buck by training hard to build a strength base for a while, as well as building muscle, to then be able to jump in and use a proper weight on all the movements you think you need. But that's a mini rant, and we're gonna get off of that. Now, 1x5 deadlifts. A lot of people think that that is a low amount. But if you go heavy enough, it's really not. The biggest thing is here is you're adding weight every single day. Every single day. If you hit 100 pounds on your overhead press on day 1, well, on day 3, you're doing 102.5 or 105, depending on what you got on your AMRAP on day 1. So the weights are increasing everywhere, all the time, on 5, different main lifts here. The 2 presses, the 2 pulls, and the squats. So deadlifts, if you start hammering those, are absolutely going to start to nail into your recovery a little bit. So 1x5 is more than enough to stimulate adaptation for a beginner. And by the way, this 1x5 is an AMRAP. Again, so whatever reps you end up hitting on your AMRAP, make sure to increase the weight appropriately. Now let's talk about plugins or accessories or assistants or ancillaries or whatever fucking term you want to use. Go buy the book. Johnny Payne has a billion plugins to add, for mass gaining, fat loss, cardio plans. He has a lot of almost workout of the day type CrossFit inspired cardio circuits in there. A lot of really, really cool stuff. For the most part, whenever I program this for someone, I ask them what body parts they really want to focus on. For women, it's typically like quads and glutes, and for men, then it's typically arms. So depending on what they want to do and how gassed out they are, I have a discussion with them. I tell them, hey, you can virtually add anything you want to a routine ever. It's just when you add something, you have to take something away. Now, if your squat, bench, and deadlift is the meat and potatoes of your training, and your bicep curls are candy, well, if you had a child, would you let them shovel in fucking candy so that way they never eat their meat and potatoes? No. And sometimes when you eat your meat and potatoes first and then you have too much candy, you get sick and you throw up your meat and fucking potatoes. So don't throw up your meat and potatoes. When you add something, you often have to take something out because you only have so much you can recover from. So add movements in as you see fit. But, and this is a big but, if they start to dig into your recovery too much, you gotta take them out. They're not worth it. Your biceps will be getting trained enough, especially as a beginner, with chin-ups and your rows. Your triceps will definitely be getting trained enough with the OHP and the bench press. Your glutes and everything else will definitely be getting trained enough with your squats and your deadlifts. If you do like to add a movement, I would wait maybe like a month or so of doing the routine to add a single movement. Maybe after a couple weeks, add a second movement. And it's up to you to figure out if you want to add those to every day or every other day or whatever. And then to progress those, I recommend just adding a rep to every single set every day. So let's, for instance, say you added bicep curls to all these days. So pick a rep range you want to do. Let's say 8 to 12. This day, you would do 3 times 8 barbell curl. This day, you would do 3 by 9 barbell curl. With the same weight. This day, you would do 3 by 10 barbell curl, 3 by 11 barbell curl, 3 by 12 barbell curl. At this point, on day 3, you could either go up to 4 sets of 8 barbell curl, or you could add weight and drop back down to 3 by 8 barbell curl. Hopefully that makes sense to you. I talk about that in a different video that you can go watch, but that's like a very slow and safe form of progression that you can do that shouldn't eat too much into your recovery, depending on if you are actually eating properly. And that brings us to another thing. You got to eat when you're on this type of routine. Now, I have programmed this for tons of people that were very overweight who had the energy available to them to do something like this in the first place while in a caloric deficit. For the most part, for most beginners, if you're skinny fat, if you're skinny, if you're just some regular dude, eat. You will have much more success on this program, a much better time if you are eating. Now, how long should you run something like this for? People always have this question, or they have this preconceived notion that I need to run this program for 8 weeks. This is a mass building phase for 12 weeks. Shut the fuck up. Run a program until it quits working. I believe in the book specifically, he says once you deload a lift 3 times, that is when you have eked out your daily linear progression. And at that point, it's probably imperative to switch to a weekly progression or a monthly progression, something like 5-3-1. And that's a pretty good metric. But keep in mind, you may fail a AMRAP set for reasons that aren't involved with actual muscular fatigue or recovery debt or anything like that. Maybe you slept like shit the night before. Maybe you didn't drink enough water. Maybe you didn't eat enough food. Maybe your girlfriend broke up with you. Maybe you're worried about your parents' impending divorce. Maybe you're worried about a social studies test. All of those things are the same. Maybe you just lost focus. Maybe a fucking baddie walked in the gym and you took your eye off the weight for a second and then you had a fucked up time. My point is, don't take those 3 deloads as gospel. If you understand that you failed this not because of a muscular problem, feel free to not deload. Feel free to just try that weight again the next session. But again, make sure you play that by ear. People also always want to ask, what do I do after this? Well, I touched on that in the last question. The biggest thing you could do is switch to a weekly progression type of routine, like Mad Cow or the Texas method. You could switch to a bodybuilding style split or whatever else you really want to do. The whole point of this is to abuse your newbie gains to build as much strength as possible. Now, let's just do a little bit of quick math to see how strong you actually would get. Well, you're squatting twice a week. And each time you squat, assuming that you didn't go way over on your AMRAP set, you're going to be adding 5 pounds. So in this first week, you are adding 10 pounds to your squat. There are 4 weeks in a month, which means in 1 month, you're going to be adding 40 pounds. Let's say you do this for 6 months. 6 times 4 is, let me pull up my calculator, is 240 pounds. Meaning that if you started with bar, you are a stone's throw away from squatting 315 after only 6 months of training. That is insane. With bench, you basically, rough math, take like a third of that, which means you're going to be adding over 100 pounds to your bench in just a couple months of training. Not many people can say that they really did that. And guys, that is the video. If you like this routine, I will post the ebook in the description that you have to buy. I'm not just pirating it for you. And I'll also link a couple of spreadsheets that you can use to type in your numbers to see what you should end up doing. I prefer just a pen and paper, but to each their own. I highly recommend doing this program. It is my favorite beginner LP. It is, I think, the best ever made. If you have any questions on this routine or tell me what I can do better, please leave a comment down below. It really helps out the channel and I respond to every single one of them. You can follow all of these socials and join the Discord to ask me any more personal questions or just to see all the exercise content that I post, which is twice a day, every single day. If you like this style of content, please click the like button and click subscribe. It really helps out, and I post exercise content in long form every single Monday and Thursday. And as always, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.